What happens when you've got nothing left to say? Today on the Manspace. Welcome to the Manspace podcast. We're your hosts, Doctors Matt Brown and Rob Porter, and clinical therapist Mike Porter. Welcome, spacemen, to yet another episode. 134 at this point, for those counting. Someone was telling me that, like, they said, I had told my husband, you have a podcast. And he opened it up. He's like, whoa, 134. I better get started.
Is he wanting to do one?
No, meaning like I better get started listening.
Oh,
that's the guy I was telling you about that I went to lunch with. I said, hey, if you ever have a topic you want us to cover, just let me know. He goes, well, I got to get through all the episodes first. He's like, I don't know what you guys have talked about yet.
Well, don't listen to the first two. The audio's real bad.
He already did.
Was it really that bad in the first two?
You listen to like the first probably 5.
Oh, because we were all huddled around the old Yeti. That's how we did that very first time. We had the Yeti in between all of us.
That's true. Well, and then I was absent for like 5 episodes or 6 episodes.
Yeah, the first episode's called Two Dudes and a Mic, and then it was like, well, no mic.
Mike doesn't care.
And it was just 2 dudes.
Yeah, what was the deal with that?
I think we just said, just jump on the first one so that you're not like a weird addition later.
Well, and when you guys like
weird addition.
When you guys
Who the crap is this guy?
When you guys record on Wednesdays, like
maybe that's
like,
what it was.
I had clients and you just never. I only showed up for the in-person ones.
We just never cared. We're like, whatever. Mike doesn't matter.
Evidently.
Dude, I've had people tell me, like, I like that Mike guy. He's my favorite guy.
No,
I'm like, I'm on the podcast too, right?
The first time you came down. Was that the first time?
Was so funny.
You had the sweet eye contact video.
Dude, that was so awesome.
The camera's right here. Yeah, I was just looking over there. Yeah, you were so nervous.
I don't look at people when I talk to them.
So nervous.
Dude, here's what's funny. This is not what I was thinking about. I was like, what if we just did like a TV show where they have a clip episode? Where they go back and play their favorite clips.
I feel like we would have to have found those clips
prepped for that
beforehand.
Yeah. Do you remember when we did that though?
We did?
For the 100th. It was
talked about
kind of like that. We talked about what have been like the best moments.
I thought the 100th was a Manly Feud episode.
No, that was way back.
It was?
Uh-huh.
Shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth.
We had the little straw buzzers.
Oh man, that was so funny. 100th episode. What have we learned so far and what you should learn? You're right.
Yeah.
Oh, it was. What was it? Anyway.
I think Manly Feud was a year.
Oh.
I think it was in celebration of having done it for a year.
When people ask, like, well, I'm getting in, what should I do? I'm like, I always tell people, listen to the Manly Feud episode because it was my favorite. I thought it was so fun. I don't think people learn
when they're just jumping into the podcast.
Yeah. I don't think people learned anything from. If you look at our views on it, it's actually really low compared to other ones.
Really?
Yeah, it's only 178.
Yeah.
I mean, on this thing, we have lots of listeners, people. It's 178,000. Oh crap. I was just thinking too of this. I've been watching this show that really no one should watch. It's just a terrible show. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. It is terrible.
It's been on for 17 years though.
Yeah, they've been going.
It's still going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They only do like 10 episode seasons.
Okay.
But they have they had a clip episode where they suddenly start like they do these clips, they show these old clips, and then all of a sudden like there's one with Charlie, and all of a sudden Charlie is watching. He's inside the clip watching the clip.
Uh-huh.
Like, and they're like, what was that? Why were you in that clip? He's like, I like to imagine that I'm in there. So then they start doing these things where you can't tell anymore if it's a clip or if it's like, whose brain are we in right now? Because they're like, wait a second, that's not how that happened. Whose brain are we in right now? It was a good way to do a clip episode. I like that. Because clip episodes, man, those made me so angry. It was like, I waited all week and we're watching it. It's clip.
That's all it is.
That's probably what people felt like last time. Oh, a new episode comes out and it's a repost.
But it was a
What
good
did you
repost.
We repost the Men in Depression
Hmm.
because men can't get enough of that sweet, sweet depression. That sweet shabu shabu. Yes.
Well,
No, nothing, huh?
I
think may have just farted.
It doesn't relate to anything.
Dude, here's
I
what's
started
funny.
watching-
what does? Go for it.
It's true.
Yeah,
I
we
started
haven't related
watching
anything to anything yet.
The Captain.
I'm
That
the captain now. What's the
docuseries
captain?
on. It's the docuseries on Derek Jeter.
Now, boo!
No,
Boycott the captain.
shut up. It's rad,
Derek
dude.
Jeter. You're rad, dude.
I am rad.
I saw this clip. I think it was. Oh, freak, man. Not Carlos Correa. Jeremy Pena. He's the new Astros shortstop. Newer.
Oh, really?
New-ish. But it was
That's
like
right. Altuve second base.
when Jeremy Pena thought he was Derek Jeter. So he like fields this grounder like kind of in like mid left center and jumps and tries to throw it. It's just like, like barely goes anywhere.
Someone yells out, "You're not Jeter."
Dude, I saw this crazy play. It was okay, so I'm trying to remember how it went. Like the guy hit the ball, it bounced off some body part of the pitcher, ricocheted off of the umpire that was like behind him, and then shot directly over like the second base, like the bag. Shortstop catches it like midair, jumps on second base and throws it to first. Double play, like flying off the pitcher and the
Man, I haven't watched. T-Mobile didn't give me MLB Pass this year.
No, it's coming.
When?
Doesn't
I guess when the
come
season starts,
till-
right before the season
Yeah.
starts.
Yeah. So I think
April.
It's next Tuesday.
Is it April like 2nd? Is that when the season
I think
starts?
so. Yeah.
All right, it better be
April
coming because they
1st,
didn't give me
probably.
MLS season pass either, and I'm very upset about that.
Didn't.
No, I can't watch Austin lose. They lose a lot. Actually, so far they've only lost one, but they have 3 draws. They look
Does
like they
soccer
get
do that?
dominated. Draws?
Yeah.
I don't know why not.
There's no overtime?
Only
No.
in games that where there has to be a winner, like it's a dropout tournament.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll do penalty kicks, which are freaking cool to watch.
Yeah.
Dude, it's fun.
Draws.
I freaking love it. You should. I'm telling you,
I've watched soccer.
you got to get it. You got to watch a lot.
I don't know.
Well, at least I've had to watch a lot, and I still don't get. There's not a lot of rules to get. I feel like I understand the rules, although I cannot understand it all. Still, so someone listening, please reach out and explain this to me. Like when they call a foul on somebody or give them a yellow card, I'm like, why? Why is that one different than the one before?
Mhm.
Like the guy fell over and looked like he broke his leg, but then when he didn't get a yellow card, he just sprung right up like nothing had happened.
Mhm.
Why is that a foul? Like one time a guy stepped on another guy's foot, I think, and then he got a yellow card. And I think, of course, he stepped on his foot. You're playing soccer.
Yeah.
It's close contact. Like, I don't get it. But man,
Well,
I
it'd
love
be
watching
interesting
it.
to see how much it's evolved over time too, because if you watch like basketball from
Oh,
like
yeah.
like the Bulls' heyday, people are like punching each other in the face under the hoop.
That's what they have a whole thing about the Pistons because the Pistons
yeah.
are super violent.
Yeah.
Dennis Rodman just fighting people and
But dude, I've been watching these things on like social media where it's like this is why nobody likes the NBA, and they'll show this guy doing these things that you're not allowed to do. Like he'll take like 7 steps,
yeah.
or he'll dribble, stop, dribble,
Mhm.
step forward. Not it's like like these dudes break all these rules. I saw another one where the guy, instead of throwing the ball into his teammate, he just kind of put it on the ground and let it roll.
Mhm.
And his teammate just followed it rolling all the way to half court. And another guy standing in front of the ball to guard it as the other guy came up. And then finally the guy picked it up and took 3 steps before he even started dribbling.
Mhm.
It's like, what the crap is happening? I don't watch basketball. So I'm like, you guys are just doing whatever you want at this point.
Yeah.
Like, whatever. But
Well, that's.
I can't watch soccer. That's the point.
I just got invited to to fill out a bracket.
Oh yeah, I did 2 of
And-
them
Oh, did you?
just for fun. I like to see.
If I wanted to, I could go watch games at this guy's house on Thursdays or like this Thursday or Friday night. He'll have multiple games going.
Didn't it start already?
Yeah, my guess is he just can't till
Yeah.
Thursday or Friday.
Okay, right, got it.
But so Jenna was like, "So you're gonna go?" I'm like, I hate basketball, so
Yeah, dude. Let me guess. It's going to go back and forth until the last minute or so.
That's what I was going to say. Those are the times to watch, but rest of the game, unless somebody's like way ahead for some weird reason.
Well, that's what people
Yeah.
think about baseball and soccer. Like nothing happens. I'm like, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
It's all just whatever. Football, you got to want to watch somebody almost die on the field, which I also enjoy. Shame on me. So I'm almost forgetting that we're recording.
Yeah, where are we going?
Well, this is where I was going with this today. When I started off saying, what happens when you got nothing left to say? I was thinking about this. You know, we've said many times, and this is true, so don't misunderstand me. Like, you cannot change somebody else, right? That's not, like, as therapist, it's not my goal. It's not my job to make somebody be different. My job is to help them see things differently, and they do what they're going to do with that. So, like, I had a woman yesterday who asked me at the end of the session, she goes, "Are we lazy?" And I was like, "What?" I don't know. You tell me. She said, "You've been telling us this stuff for 6 months or whatever it is. Like you've been preaching this stuff to us over and over, and we're just not doing it." It's like, so is the problem just that like we're a lazy couple? And I said, no. At least, hopefully, most therapists are thinking through. Like most people have some degree of resistance to change. So if you come into a therapy office, then there's going to be some degree of like, I want something changed, but I don't really want to do it. So like, it's my job as a therapist to think through like, well, how do I get around this resistance? What's a different way of phrasing this? And actually right before she asked this question, they had a really good long conversation that was different than what they'd had previously. And had kind of like, we worked to reframe. So that essentially they were both feeling rejected, because the framing previously was like, well, he feels rejected around sex. So he does what all men do. It's like, I just said I'm going to stop initiating until he can't stand it anymore. Then he initiates and, and
It's
then
rejected again.
it gets rejected. He's like, forget it. But then I said something about, like, it's so funny how we get so angry. If we put this in a different context, it's like, why don't you want to eat pizza? I want to eat pizza. And it's like, he goes, look, dude, I'm past 40. I don't want to be eating pizza alone at 40. I'm sick of eating pizza by myself. I was like, okay. And then she goes, yeah, but literally, I don't want to eat pizza alone anymore. Like when we get food, you just get it and leave and go in a different room. And I don't want to do that anymore. It's getting really lonely. And so we had this metaphor / real life thing and how it feels rejecting to her when he just walks away and all this stuff. But she was still like, well, but we're still not doing it. They've had this homework that we've talked about a couple of times and they're like, well, we didn't do it. And I'm like, yeah, they're like, sorry. I'm like, you guys don't apologize to me. It's not like I'm like, well, great. Now you get an F.
Yeah.
But it did make me think about somebody else that I worked with where I said, I can't make you have this desire. Like you're saying you want this thing. We can talk about this, but I can't suddenly put desire into you to have discipline. Sometimes you just have to have the discipline. But then my real thing of all this, like, what do you do when you have nothing left to say? And this is, I'm asking you guys as professionals, because we've all butt up against this. We've all butted up, tied it up, batitied. We've all. I was gonna use a curse word, but I don't want to have to mark the explicit thing on our thing. So, plus, cursing is for dummies. So, I'm gonna get a shirt. That'll be the next Manspace shirt. Cursing is for dummies. We all butt up against like when someone comes to you asking for help. Maybe it's your kid, or maybe it's your spouse, or maybe it's somebody you work with, or like if depending on your profession, it could even be like in church settings, for example, when people come and say, "Hey, can you help me with this thing?" And the answer is like yes, to a point. So like we have this thing too, for listeners who don't know, in the field of mental health, we have an ethical obligation. I shouldn't say this. People are going to start calling up and being like, "Can I be your pro bono client?" We have some degree of ethical obligation to see people either at least some people reduced fee or like pro bono. And
it can also be like other type of pro
other
bono
type
work, like presentations or whatever. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's true in terms of the community and things like that. And there's things like bartering that clients will do too, which I've actually done and worked out. It's kind of interesting. I was like, I'm going to come and do some stuff in my house, huh? All right. We'll see how this goes. But that's a fascinating side note, because I was like, oh, this guy really wants to pay. I was just doing pro bono. He did not want to. He's like, "Can I just please come do some work for you?" I was like, "Oh," because he proposed it. So I was like, "Sure."
Yeah.
But it was still like, oh, this is a little weird. Anyway, so what was I talking about? So I have this thing in my head, like we've all reached a point at some point where it's like, I am doing everything I can to help you. And like with pro bono work, the reason I bring that up is because at some point you are actually supposed to say, I can do this kind of work for this long. Because otherwise it could be like, I'm going to do pro bono and there's no reason for the client to stop coming. It's like, well, I can't afford it, or some clients don't want to leave. So it's like, I'm going to see you for 10 years for free. It's like, so you're supposed to have clear guidance or outlined
parameters on it.
Yes, thank you. Parameters or boundaries on this is when it ends. But in the end, I have wondered before, like, well, okay, what do you do when like you feel like I have given you everything there is to give? I got nothing left to give. Maybe this is with your spouse, or maybe this is clients that you guys have had. Try to think of it both ways. Try to think of it beyond that. Like somebody has asked you for help and you feel like, what do you want me to do? Like, I've done it. I've done everything there is to do. I got nothing left to say to you. Part of this comes to be totally honest with you guys, because we'll be all right saying this. This morning.
It's always this morning with you.
I know, man. It's because I don't actually see clients. I just make stuff up. I imagine in my head each day, what would happen if I did this? I like to tell clients sometimes, they'll be like, hey, thanks for getting us in. I'm like, it's cool. You guys are actually my only client. Every once in a while, somebody like, really? I'm like, oh. So, like this morning, it was like this client I was working with kind of, I think I was losing all patience. And I could tell from my own feeling, like my tone must sound like, what is wrong with you? And there were things this person was like, well, you've only said this, I mean, just maybe once before. I said, no, I have said this dozens of times before, the exact same thing. We've had this same conversation so many times. And I guess it's like we've all reached that point, I think. Like, I for sure have reached it with my kids of like, this just happened last night. Stuart was supposed to do this little brief, like little mini lesson for seminary, right? For his class. So his little church class, for those who don't know what seminary is. And he wanted it to be like, he had an idea in his head of the level he wanted it to be, but had no idea of what he wanted it to be. So I was like, dude, I had this thing set up. You could do trash get ball, where you're doing this and this, you have these words and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, no, that's not it. I was like, okay. And then I was kind of like, I could not move past trash get ball. So 20 minutes later, I'm like, well, I mean, we could do a variation of trash get ball. He's like, I was like, and I felt like, dude, I don't know what else to tell you. I got nothing else for you. So in short, I guess you'd have to fill in the blanks on what I'm saying here. It's like, and maybe I'm asking for professional help. Like, what do you do when it's like, I got nothing left to say to you. I'm losing all patience. Why am I losing patience? And then what do I do? Or has this happened to you? Client or otherwise?
Where'd he go?
Into the other
Huh, see.
dancing behind me. And it
Yeah,
looks like
he
a
is.
green screen.
So like I don't know where my mind went as you were talking about this, Rob, was
Taco Bell? Me too.
yeah.
Where my mind went was
tacos.
not here.
No, the like that scenario you described, I thought, yeah, I get sometimes stuck on an idea that I think this is the right thing. And so I will then like, it doesn't matter what other ideas get thrown around. I'm always going to go back to that idea because I'm certain that idea solves the problem.
Which I think happens to I think it happens
it happens to
to
everybody.
couples all the time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like the often feels like the at least for men, they'll feel like I have to fix this, and it's like, here is the fix, dummy, do it.
Yeah.
It's very obvious
and
too. I mean,
so like that, I don't know what to do. I thought, yeah, it's just because you got too locked in on an idea, right?
Me?
Like, yeah,
this is my fault.
no,
You
see,
dirties.
Stewart's is also an interesting thing that I've like talked about this with a handful of clients lately. That oftentimes when we're seeking something, we're seeking a feeling, not an actual thing.
That's a good point. Stuart, that's kind of what he's getting at, right? He's saying,
yeah,
I don't have an idea,
of what
but it needs to be
wanted
top
feel
notch.
like.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted it to feel like something.
He said, I have a reputation to maintain. And I was like, you've been in this class for a week, man. Nobody even knows you yet.
That's the worst kind of reputation. What are you talking about?
You got to start gold.
But so like he can't define what he's looking for, which becomes frustrating for the person he's saying, "Hey, help me."
Yeah, very.
Right? And like we've had clients do it to us. Well, what is it you want? Well, I don't know, but like I know what I don't want. It's like, yeah, okay.
Obviously.
You're eliminating like 2 possibilities, but there's still a million for me to choose from. So, thanks. And the only thing they know is like I keep coming back to that quote on porn. I don't know how to describe it, but I know it when I see it.
Oh, yeah.
Porn and ADHD, both.
Yeah. Like honestly, a million things. I couldn't explain like happiness. We don't know how to explain happiness to people.
Just know when you feel
I
it.
ask clients, I'm like, "So, what is happiness?" And they're like, I don't know." And I'm like, "Right. But you know what you're looking for. You could tell me about times you felt happy, but trying to put it into words, they don't know how to do it."
Oh, okay.
And so I think we do this a lot, and it helps create that dynamic you experienced last night with Stuart, right? Where given the information he was providing, you thought, nope, trash ball will kill. Plus, you've taught
No, I
seminary.
knew it wouldn't, by the way. I've taught seminary, and I told him when I played trash ball, my students go, I didn't know it was called trash ball. I was like, we're going to do this thing where this and this. Like, you mean trash ball? And they were all like disappointed. I was like, oh, okay.
See,
so this is going to be a fun day today.
That's the joys of teaching, like, 12 and
oh yeah, these were juniors in high school.
Yeah, no, they're all about trash ball.
Trash
but
ball,
like
Lady Raider basketball.
Becomes this. Look, this'll do the thing you want, and then right, you'll get the feelings of I don't know, like what you talked about. Like I'm not helping my kid, right? Like there's probably some inadequacy in there. There's some frustration at why is he making this so difficult, and all of it just sends you back to just play trash ball.
Seriously, I was I actually thought when I was like, I wonder how often I do this to my clients, where it's like I get stuck on the outcome. And so maybe this is what's interesting about what you're saying, Mike, and maybe this is what you're about to say. I'm going to steal your thunder, but I think maybe it's not so much like my frustration is not at my client. It's that, or my spouse, and depending on the situation, it's that like
Right.
if you would do what am telling you, this would resolve and everything would be fine. But if you don't do it, we have to stay in this spot. And so I'm getting angry that it's not resolving.
Right. Which there's always that part of me, just for, because I'm me, I guess, that wants to say, well, you don't know it will resolve.
Yes, I do. Do you know what I do for a living? I mean, I just told the client this morning. Actually, it was this morning.
Horn, but
I did say, lady, I've done this for well over 10,000 hours. I'm way past expert level. So I don't have my degrees on the wall anymore to point to, but I used to love to do that. One of us has a PhD in this subject. Sometimes I'll pull these condescending, like, I've taught on this. I've studied it for multiple years. I've published on it.
I know what I'm talking about.
I hate that Rob guy. That's why Mike's their favorite on the podcast.
He's like me.
Anyway,
He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I keep cutting you off. Go back to what you were saying.
Honestly, I mean, no, here it is. This is like, I guess, like the thing at like how to interact with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's harder to do in the moment. Like, it's easier for me from the outside to be like, well, sure, you just need to stop, right? It comes back to be curious. Ask more questions. Try to understand more what he's looking for. Where it's, open up your own ideas of like, okay, so what if this thing doesn't work? What if trash ball isn't the answer? What else could be the answer?
It is though. I'm going to make my son listen to this episode. Okay.
Anyway, yeah, there you go. That's kind of where I'm at with it.
Thoughts, Matt? Nothing.
No, I would go off of what you said at the end. I really think it just comes down to patience.
That's
which is really hard because I suck at this in my parenting, especially. I have shining exceptional moments every now and then, but for the most part, I suck at it because, man, we really suck at asking questions, like you said. Like I went to this training a long time ago, where the therapist was talking about how often we help before we're invited, which is a simple concept, but like he gave this, multiple examples, I guess, but it was like client says this, and it's all kind of like, I want to change this, I need help with this, and he's like, they haven't invited me to help them yet. And I'm like, really? And like he kept going and kept going. He's like, okay, there's the invitation, right? Yeah. But even there, you start with a question, right? And then you follow up with a question. And because really, like, if somebody's asking for help in a way that is like, do this for me, they'll resist every attempt. A kid will resist every attempt because there's a part of them that knows I need to learn how to do this for myself. And so when you're, asking questions, it's the equivalent of saying, I'm following you. Yeah. Tell me where we're going, right? And I think the process of kind of like that feeling you're describing, I think people only get to that, the understanding or the connection of the feeling they want and the outcome they're tying it to when they go through a process of answering those questions and kind of getting to a place of like, oh, okay, I guess it's more this. And that's probably like the real invitation for actual facilitative help, right? Like right now I can offer you this. What about trash cabal, right? And it's like, well, no, because now I've figured out why it's not trash cabal instead of like, no, that's dumb. like it's spouse interactions are the same way, right? Where it's like, how many times have you heard a couple in your office say, they ask me for ideas and then they just shoot everything down. And they'll say, I'm always the one making the decisions, and they just never come up with anything, but they're really good at telling me why my ideas suck,
Complain about my decision.
And I think it's because that other person hasn't really gone through a process yet of figuring out and answering questions and like exerting the mental energy to get to a place where they need to be. But no, like when you're talking about homework situations or things like that, it's like you're sitting there thinking, I don't know how it works for you guys, but it's like if my kid asks for help without even trying, all of a sudden what loads into my brain is like, okay, we have to get this done. And for some reason, we have to get it done in 5 minutes, because if we don't, then this isn't going to happen and this is going to happen. I want to go to bed at this time and I don't want to be staying up. I don't want to hear you. I don't want you to fail. It's a million things. And so the request for help just pressurizes the requestee very quickly.
That's as a side note, before I forget this, man, I don't know if you remember when I moved to Lubbock from Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
And Alabama has a thick Southern accent. But I moved to Lubbock and I was like, Texas has like I used to get really angry because I felt like Texas has an accent where they sound ignorant, but they think they're better for it. Like I told Becca, like, Alabama just knows they're ignorant. I was like, Texas thinks they're smarter than you. And the thing that used to drive me nuts, and I still do it all the time around my house, and I said it earlier in the session quietly, is we used to get these commercials for Lady Raider basketball, and the coach would get on and she'd be like, Lady Raider basketball. And I was like, oh, I want to punch that lady. Lady Raider basketball. But I was thinking about going back to this thing about relationships then with men and women. And there's two things essentially for spacemen listening to clarify this that we're talking about. One is curiosity, but the second one is patience, and they tie in really well together. Because I thought it is interesting how often we, like when you're talking about the therapy thing, it happened, I don't want to say yesterday, but it did, where actually it was this morning. This person gave me this long description. I know. What else happened this morning? This person gave me this long description of all these things about telling about what their dad was like growing up, and this and this. And I can feel the implied weight of like, what do I do about this? But I was like, about what? You just told me this long story. So sometimes I will say, okay, it seems like you're trying to ask me something. What are you trying to ask me? Like, what are you getting at? I don't know. I understand you're saying this and this, and I can have empathy for that, but I don't understand what you're looking to have resolved. And I think that part takes a ton of patience. As a therapist, for me, it's hard. I have, I had one guy who came in, I think I mentioned this on a couple podcasts back, where he came in and said, if you could, like the first session, you kind of gave me this like little nugget, and it was just really helpful. I thought about it all week. And so if you could, each session, I'll just kind of come in and talk, and you just have a nugget for me each session. I was like, I don't want that pressure, man. I got to come up with a nugget every session. So, but it feels like I need to give you something. That's why you came here, and you're paying good money to be here.
Yeah.
And I think without the money part, hopefully inside your relationship, I think that happens all the time. And this is why I do think sometimes, even when people say, I just want you to listen, that is true. Like, I think a lot of people are saying, I know how to fix this if I really need to, but they are still asking for help in some way, even if it's just kind of, well, engage with me on this. But it takes a lot of patience to know how to like pause and engage and say, well, what is this? Like, even with my son trying to figure out, what is your worry? There is a practical part to this to say, I mean, he told me this, like an hour and a half before he's supposed to do it. And I was like, it would have been nice to know before this, man.
Yeah.
But I was like, just understanding what his worry was. Like, why are you worried? Like, big deal, man. No one cares.
Mm-hmm.
I said, nobody has any expectation. He's like, I know. But what did he say? It was like, but I'm going to meet that expectation and destroy it. Like, I know they don't have any, but if they did, I would destroy that expectation. I was like, well, that's a weird thing to say. So I think inside of these, like in relational dynamics, when this happens, I have felt at times, like if my wife is talking to me, some things where it's like, And she's said the same thing about me. So it's not like this is only one way, but where it's like, yeah, you've talked about this before, and I don't know what else to tell you at this point. But I've been rereading the Ender's Game series,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm so madly in love with it still. Second book, so good.
I'm saying, man, that's the good one.
I know, it is by far the best. And actually, if you read he has a thing where he says, I actually only wrote Ender's Game so that I could write the second book.
Oh,
But he
The
said,
second one,
Speaker for
Speaker
the Dead.
Speaker for the Dead.
But it's very, people are like, why don't you make a movie out of that? He said, it's all talking heads with some brief moments of like horrifying violence.
Mhm.
He's like, and I'm not going to make a movie like that. But in this book, actually, somebody mentions this same idea in the third book, Xenocide. They mention this idea of you can't feed somebody who's not hungry. Like if someone, you have to kind of help someone along the way of saying, I want your wisdom or your input. You can't just give it to them.
Yeah.
I think we get frustrated when we try to just give, and it's like, why won't you eat this? It's like, I'm not hungry.
Yeah.
Or it's, I didn't ask you to give me food. I was asking you how to make this food.
Yeah.
And you gave me a meal, but I wanted to know how to cook, not
Mhm.
how to teach a man to fish. This is getting real deep. And then it's those times when there's only one footprint that it was me carrying you. What, Rob?
No, I do think there's truth to like maybe even starting with the idea that if you're asking me for help
Yeah,
in this
like,
way, I don't know that you're troubled enough by the problem yet. Because if you were,
like if you're asking me just fix this for me kind of thing,
or if it's just a frustrated like, oh, I just need, like, you haven't sat long enough with the problem for it to trouble you enough for you to kind of feel the weight of it.
Yeah.
And find your own strength a bit. Because really, I think like the best help is somebody who's struggling toward a solution and asking for support versus somebody who just barely felt the sting of a problem. Because they're not really,
Yeah.
like, there's still too many factors going on, I think, in your mind. Like, we're going through this a bit right now with our oldest who needs to find an apartment and get a job. And
Snoop Jabba Job.
And I've gone back and forth because I'm like, I've tried the question route where I'm like, you know, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And where do you feel like it will go? And it seems like the responses I'm getting are more like, I haven't done anything wrong. Don't be mad at me. And I'm like, well, that's not what this is about. It's about you finding an apartment, figuring out your finances. So but again, like, then I question myself. I'm like, have I taught enough? Or am I asking her questions that she doesn't really know how to find the answers to yet? Because I've tried to take more of like, well, let me just offer some like scaffolding here and say, here are some numbers, look at them. And I guess when I look back, when I've had conversations like that, it really did bother her in a good way, right? Like after I was like, okay, this is what it looks like financially. She was like, oh. And then all of a sudden she was like finding cheaper solutions to things. And yeah. So I think there's something to be said about like allowing yourself to be troubled enough by it to where you can do kind of a true cost benefit analysis within yourself. There's this article that I heard about when I was an undergrad. I can't remember the name of it, but it was basically like the cost of change or something like that. And the analogy it used is like your life is this tapestry and you don't like this one thread. So you're like, oh, let's get this out of here. And you yank it. And it's like, oh, crap. No, this came loose. So I think there is a process of asking yourself, like, is this change actually worth it when I consider everything? Or is it more like I just felt the first sting of frustration and I cried for help? And then somebody who doesn't like to see me in pain and doesn't want to have to deal with me late at night jumps in and says, well, here, just do this, right? And then it just turns into a fight.
That's interesting too in the context. Go ahead, Mike. I'll let you speak.
Well, I was going to say,
If I must.
I think there's two reactions there, right? One, you get the frustration that you're talking about, Matt. But the other response is, okay, great, fix it for me.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're gonna jump in, I'm gonna let you do it.
Yeah.
We had a former brother-in-law, and that guy would ask anybody for anything. Like he felt no inhibition whatsoever to go up and say, "Hey, can I have this?" Or, "Hey, can I?" Like none. And like one time, I think we asked him why, and he goes, "Worst they can say is no." And so,
Is this
to me, I
like,
think,
hey, can I have that piece of candy sitting on your counter type stuff, or like,
Can
can
I
you
have
loan
your
me
car?
money?
oh, it's
He'd
like,
do either.
Okay.
yeah, literally, like there isn't. I don't think there's ever. I never came across something he wouldn't ask. Because to him, the worst you can say is no. But I think I use him as an example because I also think, right, because if you're gonna make it easy for him, he's gonna go ahead and do it, right? Like I've got kids like this where if I make it easy for them, they'll take the easy way out. If I don't, they'll solve their problem.
Mm-hmm.
They'll step in and do it, right? So there is like, yes, you can get angry, but you can also get the kid who's just like, awesome. Now I don't have to solve my own problem.
Yeah.
Well,
and
I think that happens.
becomes super problematic as they get 18, 19, 20.
Mm-hmm.
Because
Well,
going back to that feeling of, have I actually taught my kids enough? The answer at that point is no.
Mm-hmm.
Well, people do that inside of couple relationships too without knowing it. Like that's how
yeah.
you end up with somebody where it's like one's the parent, one's the kid. It's
Mhm.
because I didn't have to think about that. This other person got so anxious about it that as soon as I chimed in on like, well, hey, this is the thing, they took it over. And so I don't even think about it anymore.
Yeah.
And then it's just routine and they both resent that thing. Partly because not only, so if we're saying one is being curious about, well, okay, well, what else is going on? And there's a patience in that is required to engage in a process of figuring out or creating. The third thing to me is you have to have some degree of tolerance for discomfort.
Yeah.
Like that idea of there's a sting of pain.
Mhm.
And so people are like, well, this is a problem. It's like, it was painful for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it doesn't mean it's a problem yet.
Yeah.
Like, I actually caught myself doing this with my GERD.
Which, for those of you who don't know, is a gastro turd.
There's a turd stuck in my throat. I got diagnosed gastroesophageal reflux disease, which is basically just acid reflux.
Wait. Gastro. Oh, GE.
Yeah.
So I was thinking GURD.
No, gastroesophageal.
GERD and gout. Who named those?
Well, at least is gout an acronym? At least GERD is.
It probably is.
Anyway, so initially I was like, God, what is this? It is not going away. And I'm not sure. I'm still not convinced. I've been taking their medications. I'm like, this is still a problem. So I don't know what this is.
Yeah.
But I found myself getting like, almost like, what is this? What if this is something bigger? What if this is like, I have to change my diet and I'm only eating raw food? Or what if this is like, I'm going all down these slippery slopes instead of, I didn't think of it this way, but instead of thinking, it's just sting of pain right now. I don't know anything.
Rob had a crisis of soda in the car.
I did. I was like, do I have to give this up? Do I have to leave my faith of soda?
No.
I can't leave that faith.
I soothed him by telling him it was just a bile issue.
Yep. That's all it is. Buddy.
Matt's like, I've been to the darker side, so it's okay over here. Don't worry about it. That's just how they get you. It's just a little bit of poop in those brownies. But I think a tolerance for like discomfort of like, I don't know what this is. And it's okay to not know what it is. But also, in order to tolerate that discomfort, you have to be able to say, I'm not assigning any meaning to this yet of whether it's good or bad. This is just information. Like being able to say, okay, well, I know I can't, this thing causes this or this thing does this, but that doesn't mean fill in the blank. It just means I know this much right now. Right now, I know nothing. All things seems to trigger it and all things seems to not.
Dude, this is like a perfect example of our last episode, right?
The one book.
Where we were talking about how, like, I mean, look how smart we sound.
Yeah.
But then all of us suck at this. It's like knowledge is not half the battle.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You said that. G.I. Joe is full of crap.
Yeah. John Denver.
Dude, that show gets quoted so often. I love it.
Yeah, it is really hard though. So for anybody listening, if you're struggling, particularly like I think with interactions with your teenagers.
Well, that's very difficult because they will not do what you want them to do.
Well, and I think it's because of what we're talking about too, right? There's like really high fear in a lot of ways for most parents because you think like, oh, Rob's creating a little bit more movement on my screen.
Like motion sickness.
Like there's, I don't know if you guys feel this way, but it's like I want them to learn the lessons, which requires failing. But then I have this irrational fear that if they fail, like their life is going to be ruined in some way permanently. And I know that's not true, but like that creeps in. And so, in the moments where I could give opportunities for learning and have patience and say, yeah, so you don't find an apartment and you don't get a job. And so you end up having to come home for the summer and your life's going to suck. But I'm making that much more my problem. And so if you really think about it, it's like, I think kids can pick up on like, I don't feel the weight of the problem, one, but also I'm kind of trying to solve my problem. Like, I don't want to watch you go through something difficult, but that may be the only way that you learn to find in yourself, what it is that will help you get to where you want to be. But then I've got this fake timeline in my mind that it's like, well, crap, if that happens, then it's going to screw this next part up and this next part up. And I guess when we've talked about failure before in our relationship with it, I think those are important parenting moments to like lean into the discomfort and let the failure happen. But even as I'm saying that, it's like, well, crap, what if they don't really care? I think that's the hardest part about relationships, right? It's like, what if I go through this whole process and I realize you really don't give a crap?
Right.
Then I'm going to have to like completely change my formulation of who you are and who we are. And I'm not ready to do that. So I'll just keep propping something up.
Well, and that's like that. As I've been listening, I think it could be easy for some parents listening. And in my experience, mothers tend to be a bit more prone to this thought process. Of like, oh great, so you're telling me I've created this behavior pattern with my kid, and so my kid not being prepared is all my fault. And the thought that I've had is, no, it takes two people to create a behavior pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Behavior patterns are like conversations. It takes two. One person can't do it.
Yeah.
Rob's got the musical interlude for today. And so it's like, it's normal, right, to feel like, yeah, I screwed my kid up. Like I've gone through that with like all of my kids. Like, great, this is me. And I know that it's been more intense for Jenner, right? She's felt it more intensely than I have. And I think, no, the dynamics that exist between myself and my children, yes, part of it is me, but part of it is also them. And so I guess what I'm saying is, don't take that blame for yourself, right? It's not, it took two of you to get where you are. And in theory, it'll take two of you to fix it.
It's like the end of Ferris Bueller's. I'll take that. You don't want this much heat. I'll take that heat. Give me the heater. Well, then I'd say we're probably about done, aren't we? We've solved all their problems.
Right. Well, what do you say when you have nothing left to say? I guess we said it.
Hey-o. So then sit down by the fire, come back again next week, and join us here on the Manspace. I got nothing.
You weren't going to sing It Takes Two?
Dang it! I already sang it.